In Bauchi, Nigeria, 28-year-old Mubarak Ibrahim was convicted of sodomy and lashed 20 times in accordance with Sharia law. Nigeria, a very conservative nation, adopted Islamic rule across the Muslim-populated northern regions of the country following the end of military rule in 1999. Ibrahim, arrested for allegedly belonging to a gay club, pleaded guilty to one act of sodomy 7 years ago and was convicted of being homosexual in violation of the Muslim religion. He was sentenced to 20 public lashes administered by the Sharia court in Bauchi. The Sharia law, Nahu Muhammad, spared Ibrahim the prescribed penalty of death by stoning, saying that the young man showed great remorse for his actions. Ibrahim was one of a dozen men arrested in that city on similar charges. 11 of the men are Muslims and were tried in the same Sharia court. The 12th, a Christian, will be tried by a secular court where he also faces punishment under Nigerian law. Relations between same-sex partners is illegal in that country, and last January, President Goodluck Jonathan signed a parliamentary bill placing further restrictions on the activities of homosexuals. Despite condemnation of the law from many Western countries for this action, and amidst accusations from human rights organizations of severe police misconduct, the Sharia Commission in Bauchi denies allegations of torture, and the Sharia Commissioner of the state, Jibrin Denlami Hassan, defies the Western criticism, saying, "The threat they are doing cannot make us change our religion." Russian authorities are attempting to take actions to relieve cultural tensions between members of the Russian Orthodox Church and Islamic jihadists as the number of Russians identifying as Muslims increases. Recently, Abakar Abakarov, member of the Russian Congress of the Peoples of the Caucasus, or RCPC, began raising funds and organizing a public rally against xenophobia that was to be held in Moscow last month. This proposal, however, has met with denials. The RCPC disavowed any support for such a rally, directing all responsibilities for the idea onto Abakarov alone, and assuring the Congress that it has no plans to hold any protests or demonstrations. The RCPC expressed concerns about the tone of such rallies in a statement signed by Chairman Aali Tortikulov. In the statement, the Congress worries about the anti-xenophobia demonstration might serve to highlight differences between Russians. The preservation of inter-ethnic and inter-religious accord is among the key priorities of the Moscow city government's plan, reads the report. Despite this proclaimed spirit of unity, sectarian violence and religious discrimination is becoming common across Russia. Acts of street violence turn into days of civil unrest, with the authorities often holding Muslim immigrants responsible while dismissing similar behavior on the part of Russian nationals. The resulting perception of racial and religious injustice drives many young Muslims to embrace jihad despite a call for reason from their own church elders and pleas for peace from the Russian Orthodox Church leaders. The upcycling of violence in Russia is especially troubling as the country will host the 2014 Winter Olympics in the city of Sochi beginning in February. The Church of Latter-day Saints has revived a 20-year-old missive entitled "The Family, a Proclamation to the World." This is in response to a December ruling from U.S. District Judge Robert Shelby, which overturned Utah's 2004 law against same-sex marriage, declaring it unconstitutional. The state appealed Judge Shelby's ruling to the Supreme Court and has been granted a stay. Utah has since stopped issuing marriage licenses to same-sex couples and has decided not to recognize the 1,000-plus marriage licenses already issued to gay and lesbian people by the various counties. On Sunday, January 12th, "The Family, a Proclamation to the World," was again delivered and read aloud by Mormon congregations. The proclamation was first produced in 1995 following years of church infighting regarding gender and church authority. At the time, Mormon leadership decided that the greatest threats to the Mormon faith were feminism, intellectualism, and the gay rights movement. Since that time, the LDS Church has been prominent in public in its defense of heterosexual marriage and adherence to traditional gender and family roles. The LDS Church was also vocal in their opposition to California's Proposition 8 and similar legal recognitions of homosexual marriages in other states. The Family, a Proclamation to the World, is an attempt to reaffirm church authority to the faithful during what is perceived as a time of crisis for the church in Utah, even as some Mormons begin to support civil rights legislation for gays and lesbians. As time goes by, the LDS Church may still face this crisis, as many of the faithful, including some church leaders, have already openly declared their support for the human rights of homosexual people despite church doctrine.